Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Comic Book ASM Artist. Today we're going to be reading a little bit of a Christmas story. It's called Superman, Peace on Earth. It's from the World's Greatest Superheroes book that Paul Dini and Alex Ross put out a while back. The planet Krypton was doomed. Just before its destruction, a scientist placed his only son in a small rocket and sent him to safety. I was that child. The rocket landed on Earth, where I was found by a kindly couple, the Kents. They named me Clark and raised me as their own. Even as a boy, I knew I was different from everyone around me. Through their love and guidance, my adoptive parents taught me to use and understand my special gifts. As I grew older, I discovered I could defy gravity. I could run faster than anything created by man. My strength was tremendous and my body invulnerable to harm. I later became a reporter, able to walk among men and be nearby when needed. In times of trouble, I am there as Superman to fight for liberty and justice. I have sworn to protect the world that has taken this child of Krypton and embraced him as one of his own. I still think back to the farm. I remember the creak of the old windmill, the smell of fresh cut hay, and the warm spring wind in my hair. Most of all, I remember my father, patient and gentle as we worked the fields together. Easy does it, he'd say. Scatter the seeds a few at a time. Don't throw them in clumps. Let them fall evenly down the rows. Give them enough space. That's the way. He knew not every seed would make it, but Pa wanted to give each one the chance to grow. He used to say the same thing about people. Some blossomed right away while others needed a little extra care. It seems I hear my father's voice more clearly at this time of year. Winter's on its way. A new year is around the corner. Families and friends gather to reaffirm old bonds and remember absent loved ones. Children whisper secret wishes and faith. In its infinite forms brings joy to every heart. It's a time when people are most inclined to act with compassion and kindness, and perhaps for a brief moment, they see each other, a fellow soul sharing the same world. I've always encouraged by the goodwill that it infuses the many celebrations of the season. It makes me feel like sharing too. The tree is a simple gesture, kind of funny and old-fashioned, but I've been bringing it for years, and to be honest, I don't think there's anyone who looks forward to this more than me. I fit the tree into place as the crowd cheers. Deep inside me, I'm a kid again. With a swirl of color and a flash of lights, the holiday season has officially begun. Everyone wants me to stop and speak, but I've already been here too long. The reporters surge forward and anxious as always to capture that special photo or quote. Being a newspaper man myself, I appreciate what they go through, but there are always more important matters that demand my attention. call out to me, but I keep going. Then I hear a different sound, almost hidden under the roar of the crowd. A cry for help. A scream of pain. Faster than a thought, I've dived down between the crowd and the girl. I sweep her up to safely, and she faints. At first I think it's from shock. Then I notice how light she is in my arms. So pale and thin. This girl is starving. She needs food and a doctor. I know both can be found at the downtown rescue mission. Dr. Rebecca Mason is a friend who has spent the major portion of her life working with the city's homeless and hungry. She's seen many cases like this poor girl in her arms, yet always has compassion for one more. Rebecca promises me the girl will be well cared for. She directs her staff to bring some nourishment, broth, and prepare for another bed. The girl stays in my thoughts all night and into the next day. I suggest to my editor we run a piece on the homeless for the holidays, but it's really an excuse to check up on her. I walk through the bright streets, bustling with life. Charles Dickens once described the season as the time when want is keenly felt, and abundance rejoices. Sadly, the first part of that statement is often ignored, as if acknowledging the unfortunate among us would dampen the merriment of the holidays. At the shelter, I ask about the girl brought in by Superman. Dr. Mason tells me the young woman's name is Jody, a runaway from the poor southern town. She thought there would be better opportunities in Metropolis, but with no job and no friends, she was reduced to begging. Malnourished, she might have died if not for Superman. Rebecca notes it's too bad Superman can't be there for everyone in need. I agree. That night I skipped the paper's holiday party. It helps for Clark Kent to maintain a low profile so as not to be missed when Superman is needed. Besides, I have other things on my mind. Alone in the research department, I scan the files for information on the world hunger. I want to learn all I can about its causes, effects, and possible solutions. In the blink of an eye, I zip through pages of statistics and volumes of reports. The photos, however, I stare at for a long time. It's ironic. I know I don't need to eat. I'll never know hunger. I don't know what victims of starvation feel. I can't decide if that is a blessing or a curse. I think back to my father. As a farmer, he had a natural understanding for the earth. I remember him telling me this world is capable of providing for all its creatures. Even now, with so many more people, there exists enough food for everyone. The problem, Pa used to say, is people, as far back as we go, we've always had problems with sharing. Seems everyone's too busy holding on to what they've got to take care of their neighbors. Pa said it would take a special individual with no personal agenda to make everyone realize what the world has to offer. Someone who could put his own needs aside and help the greater good. I don't pretend to think that I am that person, though I've always tried to be there for others. I look upon my powers as a gift, not mine alone, but for anyone who needs them. Over the years, I've helped as many people as I could. It's not my place to dictate policy for humankind, but perhaps the sight of me fighting hunger on a global scale will inspire others to take action in their own ways. It's certainly an example worth setting. Though I usually dislike speaking in public, I'm grateful Congress has given me the chance to be heard. They agree, of course, that hunger is a worldwide concern and assure me that they're already doing everything within their power to help. I respectfully tell them there is another way. With ripe crops unharvested and abandoned fields are going to waste in storage, America has more food than it can use, but not the means to transport it to those in need. I ask to take the surplus and distribute it to as many hungry people around the world as I can reach in one day. Naturally, there is doubt, warnings of expense, and whispers of hidden agendas. But it's safe to say everyone is intrigued. A few are even encouraging, eventually giving their approval. I spend the next few days gathering the excess crops. I'm not alone, for as the world of what I'm doing spreads, volunteers come forward to help package the food. Other countries join in, opening their granaries to me. I'm pleased my message is spreading so quickly. Of course, none of this goes unnoticed by the media. They call me everything from selfless hero to misguided outsider. Some doubt whether I can do it. Others think it's a scam, and there are constant demands for interviews and statements. All I say is I will try to do my best and keep going. Finally, my harvest is finished. The real work starts tomorrow. Winter in the American Southwest is bitter and cold. The old man has come a long way looking for food and fuel, but at this time of year the desert has precious little to offer. From high above I hear him sigh as he gathers up his small armful of firewood. Then I hear him gasp. I tell him what I will tell many others today, that the food is for him and his people. All I ask in return is his help in getting the grain to those who need it most. The old man smiles and nods his agreement. I wish him well as I hurry back to my route. I feel that I'm off to a promising start. I next fly south to countries where there are almost no middle ground between wealth and poverty. The great city below me is a painful example of that distance. Up from here it looks like a jewel, bright and beautiful. Looking closer, I see the favelas, the crowded slums where children bathe in gutter water. Families live in boxes and rats run openly in the streets. It's all too easy to look away and pretend the problem doesn't exist or leave it to someone else to solve. But for today at least, I will see that one person didn't look away. One person made the effort to act, and along the day's food gave them a reason to keep hoping, keep trying. With every minute I feel more sure I've made the right decision. But in a war-torn European country, I wonder if there is any hope left to keep alive. People here have seen uncountable horrors. Their families destroyed, their children crippled by landmines. A bloody conflict drags on without resolution. They come up slowly to take the food and then move back, pale and silent as ghosts. Only one little boy speaks. He looks at what I've given him, then at me and asks, "Will you come back tomorrow?" I look away. I fly as fast as I can, crisscrossing the globe many times in order to keep my promises. I'd be foolish if I thought I could do this every day. Nor should I try. I know at best this will provide only a day's relief for people who need so much. But perhaps that's what's needed to start the rest of the world thinking about a permanent solution. By midday, I've returned to Africa, determined to reach every remote village and settlement. News of my visit has spread, and many, fearing they will be left out, have arrived in droves. They swarm into the village, some crowded into rusting vehicles, others making the trip on foot. With so many moving across the dry land, I have to be alert. There's a great potential for danger. An acrid scent hits my nostrils first, then I see the distant plume of gray smoke. Brush fire, fanned by the hot winds, it will reach the village within minutes. Wind screams in my ears as I fly toward the blaze. Then I hear other sounds, thundering hooves, fearful growls, and thousands of hearts pounding in terror. Panicked by the fire and desperate to escape, the animals would tear through the village, trampling everything in their path. I'm not about to let that happen. The trench startles the creatures and turns many away. However, some of the bigger ones need additional persuasion. I go as fast as I dare, careful to keep the animals from hurting the villagers or themselves. A water sprout spun up from a nearby lake puts out the fire. The animals return to the grasslands, but I have lost precious time. I still have thousands of miles to go. My next stop brings me in contact with a different kind of beast. As a reporter, I'm well aware of the military despot who, through force and corruption, has seized control of his country. He puts on a grand show of welcome, thanking me on behalf of his grateful people. Truly, he cheers, we are blessed to be among those supermen as favored this day. His face is a mask of goodwill. The despot says He stands ready to assist me. In fact, he smiles, there's no reason for you to waste your precious time on our humble land. My troops and I will provide and distribute the food. I know this man to be a liar and thief. He has built his regime on terrorism, squandered his country's resources, and kept his people frightened and poor. If I give him this food, he will keep it or resell it. Either way, he will profit and his people will starve. As respectfully as I can, I request permission to hand out the food myself. The despot's only answer is a grinning nod to his troops. Instantly, rifles are cocked and aimed, not at me, but at the giant or at the gaunt souls across the river. The despot tells me I is a tolerant man, but my attitude verges on flagrant disregard for his authority and his country's laws. He will not have an outside presence inciting his people to riot. Through smirking lips, he assures me it will be my fault if he is forced to initiate martial law. I let him say his piece. Then I call his bluff. The despot barks in order as the people run forward. 20 assault rifles fired, 200 bullets hiss through the air. No one dies today. My eyes angrily flash and every soldier drops his melting weapon. The despot admits I could pass out food and knows sooner or later I'd have to leave. He's quick to assure me that he has many more weapons and asks me to make the choice that will ultimately save more lives. I leave the food where I dropped it. And so the day wears on. Everywhere I stop, I see hunger and poverty. Some is a result of circumstance. Too often it's a product of man's cruelty to man. Oppression breeds a spiritual starvation all its own. In many places, people furtively speak at me through cracked doors, never realizing I can see the desperate faces and shrunken bodies inside. I can't overcome their generations of fear any more than I can force them to accept what I've brought. I leave it to the empty streets and to the rats who will eat very well today. In other countries, I am reviled as a political activist, an usurper, or a fraud. They don't want me there regardless of what I'm bringing or whom it could help. Their rocks shatter as they hit me or bounce harmlessly aside. Everyone hurts. I land in too many places where hunger has stripped the ravenous people of their identities. I've tried vainly to maintain order as a faceless sea of hands rushes to meet me. The tearing fingers barely register against my skin. I hear the rasping breath in their lungs, the frantic beating in their heart. It was never my intention to turn human beings into a desperate, unthinking mob. I try to push through as gently as I can, but the crowd surges forward, washing over me like a living wave. If I stay, they'll rip one another to pieces to get the food. A fast exit is my best option. The hungry people never notice I'm gone. It's late in the day. The more I see, the more I feel I have just started. The government of one country that needs me most refuses to allow me to land. I continue, even though the leaders announce that the welfare of their people is not my concern. Furthermore, they warn that my intrusion into their airspace will constitute an act of war. I hear the missiles just before I see it. Given the weight of what I'm carrying, there's no way I can dodge it in time. There is a flash of heat, a roar of noise, and the fury of an angry storm seems to stab through me. Then I become aware of another sensation, the harsh sting of poison. I react instinctively, creating a vortex that dissipates the gas before it spreads. The soldiers who fired the missile knew the explosion wouldn't kill me, and neither would the poison. That was never their intention. Fearful of a stranger's influence and determined to keep their people dependent, this country's leaders did the one thing they could stop me. They poisoned the grain, charred and toxic. It runs through my fingers. My mission ends here, incomplete and in failure. Hours later, I can still see the ruined grain in my hands. Though I sit alone in my apartment, it's impossible for me to shut out the rest of the world. I hear the voices of those who have helped praising me for trying. I see headlines commenting on the effects, good and bad, of my mission. Most of all, I feel the disappointment of millions who still look skyward, yet know in their hearts that I won't be coming. Did I truly think I would succeed, knowing what I do of human nature? Why would I believe everyone would willingly accept what I had to give? Then again, maybe I wasn't giving the right gift. Cold night air fills my lungs and clears my head. Every newspaper and network demands some sort of statement from Superman. It's time to say something. To everyone's surprise except my own, Clark Kent gets the interview. As you know, I've always tried to provide comfort for those in want, pain, and fear. Many times I'd consider taking a stronger action to help the world, but I realized such measures could be short-sighted and disastrous. I tried to relieve world hunger, but I encountered heartbreaking poverty, not only in the slums but wastelands of the world, but within selfish men's souls. I now see that taking this responsibility was too ambitious for one man, even a Superman. The welfare of Earth and all of its people will always be my primary concern, but if there's a solution to the problem of hunger, it must be one that comes from the compassionate heart of man and extends outward toward his fellow man. There's an old saying, give a man a fish and he eats for a day. Teach him to fish and he eats for a lifetime. That simple message asks humankind to nurture with knowledge, to reach out to those in need and inspire others to do the same. That is life's greatest necessity and its most precious gift. I ask everyone to share what they have with those who need it, their knowledge, their time, their generosity, especially with the young, for on them rests our future and all hope and a true peace on. When I once again feel the warm spring of wind in my hair, I make it a point to follow my own advice. Patiently and gently, I share with others the way to scatter the seed a few at a time, evenly between the rows so that each one will have enough space. I tell them not every seed will make it, but all of them deserve the chance to grow. All right, everyone, have a good night or a good day, and have a happy holiday and a Merry Christmas. Bye.